All right. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for taking the time for being here on this workshop with us today. My name is Fernando Fouillioux. I'm a specialist solutions architect, and I have been working in the contact center space for over 17 years, starting with support, implementation, planning, and management. And now I have been with AWS for the last 3.5, 4 years, working exclusively with Amazon Connect. I'm based out of Dallas, but I'm originally from Chile. So again, I want to thank you for being here, and I'm excited to show you how we can leverage these functionalities into your contact center and bring value for our customers. All right. I'm sure that most of you are already familiar with the history of how Amazon Connect came to be a product. But basically, what we did in AWS and in Amazon is that we designed, experimented, and iterated to create the system that we use for our own retail platform, the Customer Service Associates. And basically, this is what we know as Amazon Connect today. And we have released in 2017 as a readily available product. And it's one application, one seamless experience used today by over 100,000 Amazon customer service associates, more than 10 million contact center interactions a day, and tens of thousands of customers every day. So what are we going to be looking at today? We know these are what we are going to call them the great things that we can do with Amazon Connect. These are the pillars that we focused on for the different functionalities. And we are going to be referring a lot today to everything that is related to chat and messaging, agent workspace, case management, and step-by-step guides. Okay? So we are going to be working on a quick introduction overview. Then we are going to jump into the cases section of the workshop, and then we're going to go into the step-by-step guides. Many of the things that we are going to be looking at today are going to be focusing on the agent. Why particularly the agent? The agent it's one of the most important components of your contact center and also one of the most expensive. We want to make sure that they have all of the information they need so that they can be effective in one single place. Recently, I'm going to say like last year, we released the screen recording functionality. And one of the requirements from one customer was like, hey, my agents have over 3 different screens. They need them because they have over 27 different windows. That's extremely inefficient. What we want and what we are aiming with the solutions that we are looking at today is to have all of the information that our agents need in one simple place. Little more details of why the agent is that particular, it's so important within our contact center. First of all, they are the first human contact that your customers are going to interact with. They may also be the last option after they have tried to resolve the issue on their own. They have gone and consulted your website or any other sources of information on the internet. They impact and they have direct impact in customer loyalty. An agent, it's not only representing an issue at one particular moment, but it's the visible face of your company. Turnover, it's frequently it's up to 45% annually. There are a lot of challenges for this particular position. It's very labor intensive. And as I was mentioning earlier, they're expensive. They account for over 70+% of the contact center costs. So how do we help with our solutions to address the issues that we see today? For instance, one of the things that we are trying to achieve here is to reduce the time to value for customer service, the engineer hours that you have to put into your contact center in order to be able to build the views and the solutions that you're going to be using. The time to agent proficiency, how fast it's for one particular agent to get up and running into the contact center and knowing how to use and manipulate all of the tools that they need to operate. And lastly, the global consistency, giving all of your users the same experience and the same components. You most probably, you at this point, you're already familiar with the agent workspace. This is kind of a view of what we have. And again, I want to highlight the point that I was making earlier about having everything on a single view. Points that we are going to be looking at today: case management, the ability to handle every single request that our customers have, being able to provide proper follow-up, add comments, add attachments, get reporting based out of this data. Step-by-step guides. These are going to be guides to help our agents to solve regular solutions. They are going to be easy. You will see how easy they are to build. And we are going to be able to provide agents with the experience of other agents made into a simple wizard of sorts. A couple of extra components being showcased here are the third-party applications, Amazon Q, the different way that you can have the different way that you're going to be looking at the channels in the management section of your channels. For instance, this particular user has one video call going with Anna, one chat with Sophia, etc. Okay. Alrighty. So let's start with Amazon Connect cases. Okay. Amazon Connect cases allows customers to track, to collaborate, to resolve issues quickly in the agent workspace or a custom agent desktop. The cases can automatically be created directly from the IVR, and the chatbot data that you have captured already can even be used to complement the information that you're going to present to the agents. Additionally, the agents are going to be able to take actions from the cases, like for instance, creating a new task, assigning a case to users or queues. Okay. So, jumping a little into the workshop part of this conversation, let's take a look at the workshop that we're going to be working on today. Okay. So, many of you might have already seen this workshop. We are going to be working exclusively out of the cases section today. If you want to have quick access to it, I'm going to share the QR code that you can scan so that you can navigate into the workshop. I'm going to keep it open here for a couple of seconds, and also you have the URL that you can follow in order to get to it. Okay. One of the expectations is that you are going to have access to your own Amazon Connect console. And basically what we will do is that I'm going to be guiding you through the steps of following that particular procedure. You are going to be able to access this workshop at any point. You're going to be able to follow it on your own later or tomorrow with your team. It's going to be publicly available for you. Okay. So we are going to give an extra couple of seconds, and then we're going to start working on it. All right. So basically, this particular workshop is focused on the agent empowerment suite on Amazon Connect. There are a couple of functionalities that you can go in deep at any given point. For instance, customer profiles. Customer profiles is actually going to be a requirement for working on cases today. You're also going to have Amazon Q, which is basically our Gen AI assistant that it's going to help agents to through handling situations with agents, responding inquiries. We are going to have the step-by-step guides, third-party applications, and voice ID, okay? So as I was mentioning, we are going to be working exclusively out of the cases section, and you can at any given point go to any of the other sections for reference, all right? I'm going to be working out of this dashboard. I created an empty instance for these examples and the corresponding console. So that being said, let's kick it off, all right? So the first step that we're going to have to do is to enable cases in our Amazon Connect instance. One of the prerequisites in order to enable cases is to make sure that you have access to customer profiles and that you have it enabled. So the first thing that we're going to do is to check whether or not we have it enabled, okay? Most instances that have been created within the last year or so, they are going to have it enabled by default. Older instances, you might have to go and follow the procedure listed there in order to have it. So in the AWS console, we are going to go to Amazon Connect. We are going to click on the instance alias of the instance that we are going to be working on, and we are going to check the section that says customer profiles. Over here, if you have a domain enabled, you're going to be able to see it here. Otherwise, you're going to have to create, okay? Please remember that some of the functionalities might not be available on every region, so please, at any given point, check the cases availability by region and any other functionalities that you want to look at, okay? Well, we're going to go now to the section of cases, and we are going to make sure to add a domain. So what do we want to, where is it going to be used? Basically, we want to give it a friendly name that has some meaning for our organization. It's not a name that you're going to refer to often, but regardless. So I'm going to call it for this particular purpose, workshop cases, workshop cases. That's good enough. And after we click add domain, the domain is created. If for any given reasons you had issues creating the cases, you can try again, or you can open a support case in order to troubleshoot. All right. Now that we created our cases, we need to make sure that we have the proper permissions in order to be able to use them. So we are going to go into the Amazon Connect console, and we are going to go into users and security profiles. For these particular activities, I'm going to be working with the default security profile called administrator. So we want to make sure that we have every single permission that we need for cases in this profile. I'm going to click on admin. I'm going to navigate into the cases section, and then we are going to select the permissions that we need, okay? So I want to make sure that we have permission for cases, for audit history, for case fields, and for case templates. Now we can click on save, and we should be able to see case field and case templates options, okay? I'm going to go into the agent application, and there we have case fields, case templates, all right? Okay, before moving into into the next section, please remember that you can ask questions through the chat, and we are monitoring these questions, and we want to make sure that you're being successful if you are following along with the procedure, or if you have any questions or comments, they are answered as we go through these sections. All right, so let's go into the following section, creating case fields and templates. In order to create case fields, we are going to navigate into the agent application section, and we are going to go into case fields. If by any something that it's important to mention is that if you are having issues to see these fields after adding the permissions, please try logging out and logging in, and there you may be able to see them. Okay, so there are a couple of fields already present on the list. Some of them are locked. We cannot change them, others we can. Okay. These are system fields, so they are created automatically whenever a case is created. All right. We are going to create a new field, and we are going to select of the type text. This particular field, it's going to be called city to ship. Okay. For each one, you're going to have the actual name, and then you're going to have a description. It's important to be thorough with the descriptions that you use, because as the number of fields that you create start growing, you want to have consistency with the information and how it's being used. On the description for this one, we are going to use city to ship hardware replacement, and I'm going to click on save. Whenever you're working out of the workshop, you're going to have the copy and paste buttons so that it's easier to move forward, and save. All right, we are going to create a new field, and this is going to be a single select, and we are going to call it hardware type. Basically, we're going to offer with the single select a set of predefined options where where the agents are going to just select something out of it, okay? So the description for this particular case is going to be type of hardware employees looking to replace. And the options are going to be laptop, mouse, monitor, keyboard, all right? So laptop, mouse, monitor, keyboard, headset. And we can click on save. All right, we are going to create a new field. This field, it's also going to be a single select kind of an item. So we're going to create a new field, single select, and it's going to be called software. And type of software with issues. We're going to select browser, email client, system, third-party application, and other. and we're going to click on save. So what do we have so far? We have created three customer custom case fields. And of course, we have the default out of the box. We are going to make another one that it's going to be with the text field. This is an open alternative. And it's going to be called last customer comment. Alrighty. And now we are ready with the information that we have to create an actual case template. So in order to do that, we want to move into the case template section. So a quick note on the actual fields that we have. As you may know, within contact centers, we use different categories. They are going to pertain to different domains, different business units inside of the contact center. So the idea is that you can build these sections and even subsections based out of that unique structure data that you have on your contact center. So of course, we are talking about a help desk, IT help desk in this case. And that's the guidance that we are following in order to get to it. All right, we are going to go into case templates and we're going to create a new template. We are going to name it hardware replacement request. And for the description, case to submit a hardware replacement request from employee. It's going to be active so that agents can use it. Okay, and now we're going to select it. Summary, reference number, customer. And after assigned user, we're going to select the one that we created, its hardware type. Then we're going to select city to ship. Then we're going to include last customer comment. We're going to click on save and take a look at something. We are making sure that these fields are not mandatory. Okay, so we are marking them not as required, but we are leaving that checkbox open. And we're going to click on save. We're going to create now a new template. And this template is going to be called software issues. And the description is going to be case to track support for software issues. Now, on this case, we're going to do something very similar, but we're going to actually include the software description, okay? So we're going to go down to the summary, reference number, customer, and after assigned user, we're going to select software. All right, now I can click on save, and we have our two templates worked out. Okay, perfect. All right, so let's take a look at the testing cases section, okay? Now we are going to use the Amazon Connect cases in the agent workspace to see that what we created matches our expectations, okay? So we are going to make sure to dial to get connected to an agent, and the agent, which is going to be us, it's going to be able to create a case using that particular tool, right? So in order to achieve this, we are going to download and import a contact flow into our environment. You are going to be able to see the contact flow and to download it directly with this button, okay? If you're having some, if you're seeing it like this, you can click on save page as JSON, but even better, you can just click on save link as, all right? So that being said, we are going to go into the flows section, and we are going to create a new flow. Right here on the create flow, we are going to select with the arrow down on import, and we are going to browse until the file up to the file that we worked off, right? In my case, it's going to be the one called cases sample contact flow.json import. So really quickly, what are we doing here? First of all, we are enabling logging. We are making sure that we have recording enabled for agent and customer. Then we are checking whether or not we have a customer profile created for this user. If we have it, we are going to acknowledge that particular user with the by their first name, last name. If we don't have it, we are going to be asking for, we are going to be providing them with an error message. All right. So if you see here in this particular point, it says that the working queue has a little warning, but on this case and on this case. So something that we want to do is that we want to make sure that we update that to use the actual queue. We have to reassociate it to make sure that it's going to work properly, because our basic queue is probably going to have a different ID that it's unique to each environment, right? So I'm going to click here. I'm going to select basic queue. I'm going to click on save. And I'm going to click here. And I'm going to create on basic queue. And I'm going to create on save. And at this point, I should click on save. And those warning messages should go away. Let's take a look to see if we have any other warning inside of the flow. All right, perfect. One of the requirements for this particular workshop is to make sure that we have already gone to the customer profiles workshop. Okay. And one of the requirements that we had on that particular customer profile is that there is a customer ID already associated to the flow. So if we don't have it, we are going to have to make sure to update it with a valid one, right? So I'm going to go into the cases, action create case. And we're going to have the customer set as the profile layer in this case. All right. So we're going to save and publish. In order to be able to test, we are going to open up the Amazon Connect console as an agent. And for that, we are going to click on the agent workspace. The agent workspace, you will see that it's right here. This is a view that we are going to have for our agent. And we are going to pull into the contact center with a phone number that is associated with that particular flow, okay? One of the things that you're going to see, for instance, is that phone numbers by default are already associated with the sample inbound flow. That's an alternative that you can use, and it's going to allow you to create a customer profile if you have none created in your particular instance. Okay, so I'm going to create a customer profile for this user. We call Fernando F. And there we go. We have already a customer profile at least created for this case. Now I'm going to go ahead and replace this phone number with I'm going to hang that call, close the contact, make sure that I'm available, and I'm going to replace this with the contact flow that we created. It's called cases sample contact flow. And I'm going to save, and I'm going to make another call. So I'm going to put the phone on speaker.
There seems to be a problem. Please try again later.
Let's give it 1 second and troubleshoot. All right. So I'm going to go into the flow section in case sample ID. And let me call again. Okay, excellent. All right, so going back here, I'm going to dial and put it on speaker.
Hello. Please press 1 for hardware replacement. press 2 for software issues, and press 3 to speak to an agent. Sorry, there was an error. Please try again later.
All right, let's try with the second one.
Hello, please press 1 for hardware replacement, press 2 for software issues, and press 3 to speak to an agent. Sorry.
So what's happening right now? I did not update properly the names of the cases that we were going to be using. Just as we updated the references inside of we updated the references inside of the queues, we have to make sure that we do exactly the same with the cases that we're using. So as you can say, it says like, hey, I don't know which one this is. And on the other one that I have for create cases is going to be exactly the same. So for issues, I'm going to click on save, and now I'm going to click on save again and publish. Now, hopefully, I'm going to be able to call, and I'm going to direct the call into the agent and create the case automatically.
Hello, please press 1 for hardware replacement, press 2 for software issues, and sorry, we could not get case. Transferring you to queue. Thank you for calling. Your call is very important to us and will be answered in the order.
As you can tell, there is a case created on my behalf that it's open right now, that it's called hardware replacement case. If I click on it, I'm going to be able to see the details, and I'm going to be able to update it, to see what's going on, to fill the information on the actual cases that on the actual fields that we created. For instance, last customer comment. Customer says that is urgent. Um, all right, let's try it again. And here we go. We are going to call again, and we are going to create a software replacement ticket.
And for hardware replacement, press 2 for software issues, and press 3 to speak to an agent. A new case has been created. Please note the reference number 154644032. Thank you for calling. Your call is very important to us and will be answered in the order it was received.
So whenever I'm making changes into the user, the platform has the ability of keeping a history of who's making which changes. Right now, as you can see, I'm logged as a generic agent. I'm going to log as a proper name agent, and I'm going to be able to make updates on both of these. Okay? So to make sure that I'm doing that, I'm going to log out, log in. I can get into the agent workspace. I'm going to allow access to all of the things that it wants to get access to. And we're going to call again. So let's go.
Hello, please press 1 for hardware replacement, press 2 for software issues, and press 3 to speak to an agent. Thank you for calling. Your call is very important to us.
If I click on save now, it lets me because it knows that, hey, this particular field was changed by an agent that exists and it's a valid user, okay? So that should be it with the testing phase. Hopefully you got to be able to create the cases and you were able to troubleshoot any issues that you had. And that being said, I'm going to hand out the session now to Alex Schrameyer, okay?
Hey, thanks so much, Fernando. Is everyone able to hear me all right?
Thank you, Alex. Perfect.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. You should be able to see the template for hardware replacement requests that we were working with earlier. Is that the right screen that you're seeing?
Yes.
Okay, great, thanks. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and continue through the workshop here. Now that we have cases set up and we've had two separate templates and we validated what a case looks like when it's created inside the IVR, inside of flows, we've seen what it looks like for an agent to accept that contact and interact with that case inside the agent workspace. We're going to spend the kind of second half of our time here together and talk about how we can integrate cases with step-by-step guides. If anyone that's on the call here has been a part of any of our previous sessions where we've talked about guides, you may have had some exposure and some experience building those. These guides can be built both through our no-code UI builder. They can also be built via JSON and then passed into AWS managed guides. And these guides allow you to have structured ways to allow your agents to complete work, whether it's presenting stream pop data, allowing agents to complete post-contact activities, or actually walking them through end-to-end processes. Guides are a really powerful way to automate and expedite some of the work that agents need to do without having to leave the agent workspace and move into other applications, which can be confusing and make agents drop their focus. What we're going to do here is we're going to show how these cases, specifically this hardware replacement request template that we just spent the time building, can be used inside of a guide. So how can this be part of an actual workflow? And hopefully we can all get the idea of workflows that we all have inside of our organization to see what would make sense to capture data, process data, and save it as a case for later follow-up, escalation, or transferring to other users inside the contact center. Then the last module that we'll do from a build perspective is going to be focused on how do we expose these cases to customers via self-service. So how can your end customers open cases, view cases, or modify cases? And we're going to still use guides for that with its capability to be embedded inside of Amazon Connect chat. So taking what has historically been an agent-facing guide and then exposing that to customers to help self-serve for those times that they don't need to talk to an agent to post an update or get information on what's going on. So let's dive in. Again, we're going to use this exact same template. So it's just important that everyone has the hardware type, the city, and the last customer comment fields available here because we'll be manipulating those different attributes in addition to the system attributes or system fields that we have here. There's going to be a couple of different contact flows similar to the previous module that we'll want to interact with. So you'll want to have the workshop open. We are in the fourth section here, which is titled Integrating with Step-by-Step Guides. And you're going to download the file that's named SBS or step-by-step guides _ cases.json. That's going to be the first file that we're going to work with. And what we will do is import that particular contact flow. So we'll do that by navigating to flows, create flow, and then import. And then I will bring up the SBS guides _ cases flow. It should name it SBS guides.cases. And if we kind of zoom out here a little bit and take a look at what's going on, you should see a couple of different notes within these flows. These notes are attached to particular blocks. And we should see 6 different blocks titled Update Me. This is using some of the block name capabilities within flows here, because there's some work that we need to do when we import these resources into a different Connect environment. Certain things like our template name needs to be mapped over to actually match the values that exist in your environment, as well as other aspects of your case fields, specifically the custom case fields that, although they exist by name, don't resolve inside this environment. So once you have this flow imported, you should be able to find all 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we go down one more row, 5, 6 different blocks that we'll need to update to be in line with all the attributes that exist in your particular environment. What are we doing with these 3 rows? Let's talk about that first, and then we'll go into the actual update process. We're going to start with a view that allows, in this case, the agent the ability to either create a case, view a case, or update a case. And in this workshop, we're just showing that in a guide, but in a real environment, you'd probably put this as a part of a larger workflow or a larger work stream. But to keep things simple here today, we're just showing how you can directly use guides to do these 3 operations. If we create a case, it's going to go ahead and process the information, set some attributes, and actually create the case using this block here. If we're viewing a case, it's going to take a similar process. If we follow this view down here, it's going to allow us to input a case ID or a reference number. It's going to take that reference number and it's going to use the get case operation. And then after it gets the case, it's going to display the relevant details to the agent. From either this view case flow, or if the agent specifically calls edit or update case, it's going to take them to this row here, where we can actually both put in the reference number, see the details, and actually then modify and then update the case information. So we're using 3 different case block operations here, or capabilities. We're doing get case, that allows us to view it. We're doing update case, that allows us to update an existing case. And we're doing create case right here. And all that's done within flows. No need to go to a Lambda function or write any type of custom code. This is all based inside of flows to get this done. Now that we've talked about what this flow is intending to do, let's go through the process and follow these notes here to actually update what we've imported to match the attributes and the values in your environment. So we'll follow the note here. It says we want to update the template to match. So we will do hardware replacement request just to copy that over, make sure that it's actually referring to the thing that exists in your environment. We'll then update the request fields. We'll say that the request fields only include summary and that there's 3 request fields that just have UIDs here, or what might look like random numbers. That's because the system this was exported from had city, hardware, and comments, but your system that you're importing this into doesn't have this reference. So we have to go ahead and add that so it exists in our environment. So we'll check hardware type, we'll check last customer comment, and we will go ahead and select city to ship. And when we do that, we'll see that not only does this section here update, allows me to X or to clear things out, but we'll see that we now have proper names, not just UIDs, that we can set our attributes against. For all 3 of these, and this is going to be a process we'll follow for a couple of these blocks, we're going to select the set dynamically option. And we're going to use user-defined attributes. Now we have in the note here exactly what the user-defined attributes should be and how you set that. But if for some reason you didn't want to look at that, or you wanted to understand why are we doing this, it's because later on, we're actually setting these attributes. These attributes are going to be set and used in other parts of the environment here. So here we'll see we're setting city, and we're setting that based on the data that exists inside of the form. Here we're setting the user-defined attribute of hardware type. And we're getting that from the view data. And here we're setting comments. This is the block that just precedes our create case block. And these are the types of information that we need to go ahead and add. So we'll make these match. We'll do user defined. I'm in city to ship. If I read the notes, it says that city to ship should be user defined and city. So I will type city. For hardware type, we are user defined and we are hardware lowercase h and capital T, as that matches the attribute that we're setting here. And then for last customer comment, we're doing user defined, and this is comments with an S on the end there. Again, this is matching the details that we're passing into this particular block, and then allowing us to have this be passed in our request payload when we're calling this create case update. So that's our first block that we needed to update as part of this import flow here. We did the template, we updated the request fields, and then we updated the fields that then showed up to have the appropriate user-defined attributes. Let's go ahead and move to our next block, which should be the one that says update me number 2. In this one, we're now doing a get case operation. And so we want to make sure that in the response fields, so we're passing in reference number. So we're saying, I want this case based on the reference number. And we want to get some attributes, or in this case, fields back. In this case, we want city to ship, and we want hardware type. And again, we knew that because it's what's in the note that's right here underneath update me number 2. And so now we see hardware type and we see city to ship as the 2 response fields that we'll have. That one was a little bit easier, didn't have to type anything, just had to select the checkboxes. And we'll move on to update number 3. Update 3 is going to have some similar notes here as well. We want to update the user-defined attributes to match the respective case keys. In this case, because we just did hardware type and city, we'll need to just update the key. In this case, it's a pretty simple match. Hardware type matches to hardware type, and city matches to city to ship. Everything else should be fine in this particular field. If we scroll down, we'll see that title's already filled out. We'll see that summary's already filled out. We'll see that case ID's filled out. So we just needed to make those 2 changes in this particular update me number 3 block. And so we'll save that. And I'll minimize this since I know that I've taken care of it. Once we've set these attributes, so just kind of following this flow, we're using the reference number, we're using that in the get case operation, we're then updating these attributes based on the response we get, we're displaying that inside of the form, we're setting some additional attributes based on what's happening inside of that form. We're now going to go to the update case operation. So we've listed the case, but now we actually want to update it and maybe make some changes. And so we'll follow the instructions here and we'll update 3 request fields. We'll see that this only includes summary and title. So we need to add city to ship, hardware type, and last customer comment. Now that we have those, just like we did in a previous block, we'll set these to dynamic. And we'll make sure that we're using the user-defined namespace. And we're going to use the key that matches. So remember, city to ship, that key is city. Hardware type is user-defined, and that key is hardware with a capital T, no spaces. And then last customer comment is user-defined comments with a T. You can look, looks like everything else is filled out the way it's supposed to be. So we'll save, really important that we're saving all of these blocks. And that looks like all we needed to do in this note, so I will minimize that. We'll go down to our final row here. This row is where we're just viewing the case, so we need to update, so we're actually passing in some of the right details. You want to make sure that here, the response fields have the 3 things that we're looking for. So city to ship, hardware type, and last customer comment. Once I click out of that, you'll see that we now have a lot more boxes down here. I'll save that one. And we'll move on to the last block for this particular flow, and then our import will be complete. We see that we have a couple of blank keys. So we'll want to update hardware type to be case hardware type. It's a 1-to-1 match. And then city is going to be the same thing. City goes to city to ship. We'll take a look, make sure that everything else is filled in. It is, which is great, except for comments. Almost missed comments down there. We added comments in block 5, so we need to make sure that we do last customer comment right here. And now everything should be mapped. So we can save. Minimize. And as long as you followed those steps, you should have cleared all 6 of your update me named blocks. And we should now be ready to actually process the creation, the viewing, and the updating of a particular case. I'm gonna just rename mine to workshop because I might have a couple of other copies of this laying around. And I'm gonna publish. We'll see that it published successfully and there's no issues with any errors or anything that's there. So I should be in a good spot again. You publish and then make sure that you hit publish for it to actually process and go through. And that's what it takes to get this first flow imported. Now that we're at this state, we're going to upload what's called our handler flow. And that's because what we see on the screen right here, everything that we just did is to help support the agent-facing guides. It's the show view block that we have in here. It's the, there's another one here. It's the show view confirmation window that's here. This is all what runs behind the scenes and the data that's presented to the agents as they interact with different blocks. What we're going to do next is actually do the customer facing or that handler flow that will allow us to actually define that this is the flow that we want the agents to use for their guides. And that allows us to set things like the working queue, to want recordings to be turned on, and other things like that. So to do that, we're going to go back into flows. You can either go to flows directly. I'm going to open it as another tab because I like having tabs open. You'll create a flow, and then you will import the next flow that's going to be inside of the workshop. If you're on this page, there's 2 orange buttons. We just did the one that was download the SBS guides underscore cases. This one is SBS underscore straight underscore to underscore queue. So make sure that you're doing that straight to queue flow. I'll go ahead and import mine on my screen here. SBS straight to queue. And it should look like this, a lot simpler of a guide, well, of a flow, I should say, because we're not doing all the guides processing. We do want to make sure that we're updating or validating 2 things. The first is this set main agent view. This is that default flow for the agent interface. So when the agent receives this contact in Workspace, we're essentially saying what guides, what view do we want them to see? And for this, we're going to select the SBS guides cases. Again, I named mine -workshop, so select the one that you had saved the last flow that we were interacting with. Select that and hit save. And then select what queue you want to use. I'm using the basic queue, so I'm going to leave this as is, or you could go in and actually set basic queue to manually assign that, essentially giving us this resolving error here, saying it has the same name, so we think this is right. But if you want a different resource or want to map this to another queue that your user is in, feel free to go ahead and do so here. Now that I've made those 2 changes, it's going to say it failed to create because I have something that's that exact name. That's why I went and did -workshop. And if I do it this time, it should successfully publish for me, so I don't have a name conflict issue. And there we go. We're successfully published, and we are in a good spot. Now that we have this flow imported, what's going to happen is whether we put in a voice call or a chat into this flow, it's going to turn on logging. It's going to set that when an agent receives the interaction, they're going to go through the guides flow that we just configured. We're going to set our queue, in this case, to be the basic queue. We're going to play a prompt, transfer, and then have an error handling that advises us, if we're in production, do something that's better error handling than just playing a prompt. But for our purposes, this should get us where we need to go. From here, we'll want to assign a phone number to this particular flow. And so we will do that by navigating to phone numbers. I will go ahead and do this one. And I will do SBS. I will pick the straight to queue -workshop that reflects what we've all been working with here today. And so what should happen now is that if I navigate to my agent workspace, and I place a call to this particular phone number that I was dealing with. So I'll place a call to my number. You all make a call to your numbers, as I'm oddly getting a phone call at the time that I want to place a phone call. I will place my call and I will hop into my agent workspace. I'll go ahead and accept this interaction. And we'll see my guide has popped up here. So there's a couple of different things that we're able to do. We're able to create a new case, we're able to view a case, and we're able to go ahead and update a case. And let's go through this whole process here. It looks like because I am using the same mic that I'm using for the call, it's not actually going to connect, but it's still going to pop this guide up. It's going to do a couple of things for me. It's actually going to match to the customer profile name it's passing this in, because that individual matches the profile that's being used. So the phone number I'm using is matched to this user. And so we're actually passing in some of those details into the guide to make it easy for the agent to understand who they're interacting with. And we have the ability to fill out the fields that we just talked about: title, summary, and then some of our custom fields like hardware type, city, and comments. And so what I'll do is I'll call this, I'm going to call it test case 1. We'll update this a couple of times, but this kind of lets us know this is the first case that we're working with here. I'm going to give it a summary. This case was created from a guide. I'm going to say that this was a keyboard issue. We want this shipped to Miami. And I'll just put a test comment in here to see what happens. When I submit, it's going to go through the flow that we were just looking at there. It's going to go through some of those blocks that we were interacting with. And it's going to go through the process of actually creating and then displaying the case number after that's been created. Because we have this particular guide set that home takes us back to this screen, I don't need to make another call. I don't need to do any other parts of the process. I can actually go back in and view that case. Now, the case should show up here. So I should be able to, see my case and see my information. And if I hit refresh and not plus case, it should actually show me. So here's my test case 1. Here's the number, because I had that in my clipboard, so we know that those numbers match. But thinking about an agent that may be in a workflow, maybe there's a couple of different tasks you want them to do. Even though Cases is natively integrated into the agent workspace, this allows you to have the agent complete the activities they need to either create or update or review a case without having to get broken out of that process or taken out of that guide. And so let's see what that looks like. If we go in and view a case, I can now paste in the case number I have. You, of course, could do things like looking up, in this case, Calvin, and saying, Calvin, how many cases do you have open right now? And actually returning that as a list if you wanted to. In this case, we're actually knowing our case ID and passing that in. And we'll be able to see some details. And if you remember when we talked about the import flow, the flow that we used, that we made those 6 changes to, there's both a create flow, which we've just done. We just created the case. And there's also 2 additional, one that lets you view, which is what we're seeing right now, and then one that lets you update or modify. I could either go back to the home screen and click the update button, or I can allow my agent to make those edits right here. And we're now in the update part of that flow. It's from here that I can say this is actually test case 2. This case was modified from a guide. This was really about a monitor. And oh, by the way, we want to send this to New York now. Changing the city and hardware. And now when we submit this, it's still the same case number. And what we can do is you can either go back to view this, or we can see these changes reflected and updated inside of the case console itself. So as we update, we see now we have test case 2. We see we're shipping to New York. We see that we're changing the city and the hardware. All of those things that we just changed, monitor, is all being reflected here. It doesn't matter if you're working and operating out of the case console itself, like what we're on the screen right now, or if you're interacting with guides and needing that to be a part of the entire workflow. Integrating or pairing these things together allows agents to do more without having to jump around, and allows you to define prescriptive workflows and guidance for your agents to allow them to be as efficient as possible. Now that we've had this working with the creation of a case and with the viewing and updating, since we technically did do this update case, we just didn't click the button. We did it via view cases, but knowing that this is the exact same flow, we can feel pretty confident that that's going to go ahead and work for us. I'm actually going to end this call here because I don't need to be on it anymore. And what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at how we can take these same agent-facing guides. So what are the guides that we would allow an agent to do? And see how we can empower a customer, an end customer here, to actually view or update their own cases. As I mentioned at the top of the session when I hopped on here, this is going to be done via the Amazon Connect chat channel, as we have the capability to present guides, like we just showed you for an agent, to end customers via chat. So we're going to do a couple of the same setup processes that we just did for our agent-facing guides. And we're going to start by pulling the contact flows out of the next section. So if you're following along with the workshop, that's going to be the interacting with cases via chat self-service section. And at the top of the screen, after you see the screenshot of what we're going to be building here in this part, you'll see implementation details, and you'll see that we need to download the SBS, or step-by-step, straight-to-queue chat. Now, you'll notice that that is just a modification of the straight-to-queue one that we are doing right now. And the reason for that is that we want to make sure that we can keep these separate and have both our agent-facing and our customer-facing flows operate at the same time. We'll go ahead and import. And I will import the straight-to-queue chat. And actually, it's misnamed, but that very first one that you download should actually be, let me go back to this. The very first file that we're downloading here is actually going to be the SBS guides _ cases _ chat. So let's open up that one instead. Looks like we have a little bit of a typo in the orange button, but if you actually click it, it should be downloading the appropriate file that's here, and that's SBS guides cases underscore chat. So when you click that first orange button or right click and save, it should give you this file. And then that file should look like this. The biggest thing to keep in mind is that here we're going to have 5 updates instead of 6 updates because we're not creating a case. That's where we lose that 6th one that we just did in the other environment. And so you want to update it. It should look like SBS guides.cases.chat. And I'm going to update mine to say workshop. So that way I don't get any naming conflicts, as I probably already have a version of this in this environment. And we're going to go ahead and follow the instructions to align what we've imported with the resources that exist in this environment. So just like we did in the agent-facing flow, we're going to start with the update me number 1. And we're going to follow the notes, which says we want the response fields, so not the request fields, but the response fields, to include city to ship and to include hardware type. Once we see that those are there at the bottom, we'll save. And I'll minimize this so that way I know that I've actioned it. Everything that we're doing here is pretty much the same that we did inside of our agent-facing guides flow. But because we're doing this in another flow to kind of keep these experiences distinct, we are having to go through this mapping process again. In update me 2, we're going to go ahead and update the hardware type and city keys. So that way they are set in this particular environment. So I will go to city to ship. And I'll just make sure that everything else is set appropriately. And then I'll save. And I'll minimize that. Next, I'll go to update me number 3. I will see that these have the UIDs. So we need to update our request fields this time to include city, hardware, and then last customer comment. And in doing so, we now have city, hardware, and comment, which we will update with user defined, lowercase city, user defined, hardware, capital T, no spaces, and last customer comment, which is user defined, comments with an S at the end. So we've updated the request field. We've set each field using the attributes, and we're using user defined city, hardware type, and comments, matching what it says in that note. And we'll save and minimize. You'll see here, there's a validation or resolved resource warning. If you're using the basic queue, you don't need to do anything because it's going to match to that version in your environment. Again, if you want this to go to a different queue in your environment, make sure that you update that appropriately. We've now updated update me number 1, 2, and 3. If we're following along, this was all within the update case flow. We're now going to go down here to the view case flow. If you're not wondering, Alex, update case, view case, how do I know what you're talking about? It's because we actually have these flow blocks named update case and view case. So we can kind of know where in this logic, where in this flow are we doing our different operations. So as part of our view case, well, we need to use the case operation get case. And so to do so, I want to make sure that the response fields are including the city to ship and including hardware type. So I'm going to add both of those, confirm that they're down here. They sure are. Save and minimize. And then for update me 5, we have these 2, in this case, city and hardware sections that we're matching hardware type to hardware type. We're matching city to city to ship. And just doing a quick scroll down and making sure that everything else is updated, mapped, and it looks like we are. So we'll save, minimize, and publish. Now that we have this flow published, we're going to go back into flows and we're going to import the second flow that exists in the workshop. This is the one that's actually titled SBS straight to queue chat contact flow. Fix that typo in there to avoid some of that confusion. But then you should be able to import this straight to queue underscore chat. And then we'll have a simplified version of what we had in the agent experience here. There's two things that we need to do. In this one, we need to make our transfer to flow match the one that we just touched. So for me, I called mine SBS guides.cases.chat-workshop. You may have named yours something different. If you didn't rename yours at all, and it's exactly the same as what it is, then yours would just be .chat without the workshop at the end. The other thing that you'll do here is you'll set a contact attribute that will match a customer name. Normally when we're doing real chat inside of Amazon Connect, you're able to pass in identifiers for your end customers. This allows you to set up login processes, say on your website or your mobile application. If Alex is logged into the website, then we know who he is and we know how to interact with him via the chat channel. So you can pass that customer name when you invoke a chat. Because we're really just trying to get to how to test and utilize these guides and these cases inside of chat, we're not going to set up that full process. So we're actually going to set the value that could be passed through here inside flows. So taking a bit of a shortcut to get this information into the experience. What you'll want is to have this match the name, the full name of one of your users inside customer profiles. And so for me, if we take a look, I have my user that I called earlier. We had the case that we just dealt with, and his name is Calvin Castile. So I'm going to go back into this flow, and I'm going to replace John Doe with Calvin, because that's the full name of someone that exists inside my customer profiles implementation. If you have another name, your name, fake name, something else, you'll want to update this contact attribute with that accordingly. And so we'll save, and we'll publish. And just like before, I failed to add my dash workshop. This probably won't happen in your environment. It's going to happen because I already have a version of this file. And so now I have a bunch of these dash workshop to match what we're building here today, and we are successfully published. So we've done all the work that we need to do to implement these chat-based guides that are going to help us view and update cases. What we're going to do next is we're going to set up a communications widget inside of Amazon Connect. And this communication widget can be found from channels, and then by navigating to communications widget. If you add a widget, this will allow you the ability to name it. I'm going to call mine cases and guides in chat, but you can name yours whatever you want to. This communication widget allows you the ability to put both chat as well as WebRTC based voice calls that also give you the ability to escalate to video calls, and allows you to embed that into your website or inside of your mobile application. What you'll see at the end of creating this widget is it allows you to offload a lot of the heavy lifting of creating and maintaining this type of an experience by providing you a script, a JavaScript script that your web developers can put inside of your customer-facing sites or internal-facing sites to enable this capability. Since web calling, both voice and video, is out of the scope of this particular workshop, we're going to uncheck that for now. But if you want to play around with that later, you can always come back, check it, and see how that operates. And we're going to select the chat flow. In this case, we're going to do the SBS straight to queue chat. And I'm going to use the one that is titled workshop. I'm going to save and continue. On this next page is where you could go through the process of configuring, color schemes. Do I want a black icon, a white icon? Do I want to make this a different color? Maybe you have some branding. Maybe you have some different requirements that you have within your organization. This allows you to kind of customize the look and feel. It helps if I take the contrast up a little bit here. the look and feel of this icon so that way it fits onto your website. We're not going to set any custom coloring right now. You're welcome to if you want to. As well as welcome to explore how you can add in things like a logo URL, change fonts, change greeting messages, change header messages, and all those other things that are available here. But for the purpose of this, we're actually just going to save and continue. And the last screen that we're presented with here is going to be where we can define what domains can this widget be accessed from, and then add security. In this particular area, I am going to be showing you how to deploy this via a localhost server. So I'm doing localhost port 1337. If you have Python on your machine, this method will work for you. If you have another way to generate a localhost web server to host a very basic HTML site, you can use that as well. And if you say, Alex, I don't know how to do any of that, that's fine. Just follow along and watch this part of the process. And you'll be able to see how you could go ahead and copy and paste this script, and then how you could pass it over to your development team or your web team in order to get this experience hosted. Again, for this purpose, I'm going to use port 1337, and I'm going to be using Python to create a very lightweight web server to get this up. Because of this workshop setup, I'm also going to skip the security aspect. There's a big paragraph here. Definitely read it. Best practices for security, especially things that you're going to make public facing. You want to make sure that you're adhering to. So for this purpose, we're not diving deep into how to set up JSON web tokens or other things in that area, but do be aware of that, and you know how to translate what we're doing here into a production environment going forward. Once we save our widget here, the output is going to be this script. And this script, this 20 or so lines, is everything that's needed in order to put this into a very simple website. Now, this could be put into a more robust website as well, that you might have on your customer-facing portals. But we're going to go ahead and see what this would look like if we make some slight edits and then turn this into an actual file. So what I'm going to do in my environment here is I'm going to pull up a folder, and then I'll bring my screen back over. I'm going to create a file and call it workshop chat.html. So I have a file inside of this directory here that's called workshop chat.html. I'm going to go ahead and open that. I'm just going to use Notepad++. You could use a more robust Notepad utility, but because we're really just doing the very basics of a web page here, I'm just going to go ahead and outline what this looks like. I said 20 lines earlier. It looks like we're actually only 13 lines inside this script. So as I paste the script that I just copied out of Amazon Connect, this is what it's going to look like. In the workshop, we do recommend adding one additional line. So if I copy this line in, what this is doing is this is applying a custom style. If we take a look at the screen right here, we'll see that this chat widget is very vertical in nature. But the guides that we're building to be more horizontal in nature. Now you could do two things. You could adjust the look and feel of the guides that we're building and make them stacked so they maybe fit more in this vertical rectangle. Or we could make the updates to the widget itself and increase the width of the particular widget to give us more space. And we'll see what this looks like once we actually go and deploy it. There's a couple of other things that I need to do since I'm trying to make a really scrappy website. And that's I need to add some HTML components. So I'm going to paste those in here at the top. And I need to close some of those components. So I'm going to go ahead and put those at the bottom. And now, if I save this file, I'm going to go into this directory. I'm going to run my terminal. I'm going to run this really simple command. Now, this only works if you have Python installed. If you have other utilities or other ways to start a server, you can do that. But we'll see I'm using Python. I'm starting HTTP server, and I'm defining the port 1337. Now, what this will let me do is this will let me actually go to localhost or 1337. And as I navigate to that folder or to that directory, we'll see it's actually serving some of the things that exist there. What I can do then is I can actually open up our particular guided experience, and it will greet us and we can go through that process. So let me bring the right window back over. Let me bring this tab. So here's my very simple localhost port 1337. I'm going to open up workshop chat, and we're going to see probably one of the most boring websites you could ever see, but we made it really quick. And the most important thing right here is not that it's a white screen, it's that down here we have our chat icon. If we select that icon, we'll see a wider display. This isn't our vertical rectangle. This is more of a square, and it's because we set the pixels to be 800. You can explore that look and feel. How wide do you want it to be? How tall do you want it to be? What space do you have? And again, keep in mind that you can customize these cards or the views that you're having to be more vertical in nature, if that's the form factor. Maybe mobile. Someone has their phone typically in a vertical orientation, so you might want to modify the guides to be more vertical. From here, we're giving our end customer. And I'm logged into in this case, could be the external website. In our IT help desk, this could be our internet page. Maybe I'm accessing this from SharePoint, or I'm accessing this from ServiceNow, or I'm accessing it from one of our other internal utilities. And so here I am in my end customer hat, trying to go ahead and view information about a case. And so I might want to go through the view case operations and process. And we'll see this is very similar to the experience that we had with the agent. We could extend this and do things like maybe the fact that we know that this is Calvin. Maybe we only return the list of cases that they own. Maybe we only return the top 3 or the most recent, or we try and provide some proactive intent. You could certainly extend this to have that more reactive or personalized experience, but we're trying to make things simple to allow you to understand how to build this, and then you can extend this on your own. And so we're going to go ahead and take the case number. I'm going to go back to the same case that we opened up earlier. So the one that ends in 0694. It was test case 2. I'm going to go ahead and open that up or query that inside of my customer-facing guide. What we're going to see is it's giving me the same details. And again, you have full control over how you want this information to be displayed. So these are some sample columns and tables, some sample formatting, but because guides give you the flexibility to present the data exactly how you need it, you can tweak this or entirely redo this in a way that's going to make the most sense to you and your customers. Now I could just go to next and say, great, I viewed the case and that's it and I'm done. Or I could go through and actually update the case. And just like in the previous example, I could have hit edit, or I can go through our update case button, paste the case number that's in there, and then actually go through the process of updating things. In this case, I'm just going to iterate on the number. This is test case 3. This was modified from a chat. Now, we're going to update our city one more time. Let's go to Austin, and we're just going to arbitrarily update some areas here. I updated this from self-service. So if you ever needed notes from a customer or other things that they need to pass on through, this could be a way to maybe give you some of those forms there, or those capabilities to allow the agent to interact with it, or sorry, the customer to interact with it. Now we could go back, and there's 2 ways we can view this case. We can view the case here, put our case number in, and see the details. Austin, headset, chat, and we can go back to the case itself inside the case console and see all of the things, as well as I have to do this from self-service. Here's the city, and get all of those different pieces of information. So that's how we take cases, embed them inside of our agent-facing workflows. So that way, information that's happening inside of guides can then be piped into a case, or maybe you can bring data from a case into a guide so the agent doesn't have to manually look it up. We can bring in things like maybe the status We can bring in things like the city or other information and allow these different capabilities to work better together. We've also just seen how we can take those same exact guides and make them customer facing and allow customers to self-serve. If there's times they just need to check on a status, maybe they just want to see that it's open. Maybe you want to have a shipping column here or a progress field to allow them to know that your order is in processing and will be shipped the next 3 to 5 business days. Those are the types of things that allow you to deflect contacts and allow you to have customers self-serve and then only escalate the things to agents that actually matter. If it's just checking the status of something, that's not a high value interaction for your agents. And so by combining cases, guides, and chat, you can provide a more self-service experience. In the same aspect here that we just talked about, you can do inside the IVR for voice interactions. We're using the same case blocks inside flows. And so you could string together things like play prompt blocks to verbally have that text to speech, to provide customers with input, maybe capture their speech if they want to go ahead and provide a free-form text note, and allow them to interact with cases in a more self-service way if they're just trying to look for updates or make updates. But we've also seen how they can interact with them a little bit more richly by using guides embedded into Amazon Connect chat. The next thing that we just want to talk about here is how metrics operate. How can you use the out-of-the-box case metrics inside Amazon Connect to get deeper insights into what's happening across the organization? This section is fully written out inside the workshop, so we're not going to dive into things in too much depth. We're probably going to get through this in about, I'd say, the next 10 minutes to then leave the last 15 minutes of this meeting for any questions that anyone has. I know I've seen the screen pop up with some Q&A things, and it looks like Fernando's doing a great job answering those. But if we need to have any more free-form Q&A, we should have that time here in about 8 minutes. So let's dive in to one of our environments here. Let's go ahead and take a look at what metrics look like inside of Amazon Connect cases. So I'm actually going to end this, close out of this, and then bring us down to one tab again. So inside Amazon Connect, we have out-of-the-box real-time and historical metrics that are available for you. One of the things that's available when you navigate to this view, assuming you have the appropriate security profile permissions, is we'll have the ability for both interval and snapshot metrics on cases. These are going to provide you 2 different layers of information. Your interval metrics are going to provide case metrics for the interval that we specify. So if we take a look at maybe the last week, we can take a look at the different templates that you have configured in your environment and see some stats like how many cases were created, if you've resolved them, what's your resolution time, actions performed, and other things that you might not see all of this detail because you've really just been opening and editing some cases. As you go through the life cycle of actually closing, reopening, any of those other types of things, this is where you can go ahead and get to the information that's relevant for the interval that we're looking at. The other metric, and again, just like any other Amazon Connect metric, you can take a look at, different time intervals, last 7 days, today. You can group based on maybe status, if you want to see what's open or what's closed. And you can go through additional filters, look at certain templates, look at certain statuses that you may have, and then select which metrics you want to see. These can be saved. These can be a part of broader reports that you may want to involve. And there's also going to then be the snapshot metrics. So snapshot metrics are a little bit different than your interval metrics, where snapshot metrics are based on a point in time. So this is right now at 5:39 UTC. You might say, I'm not in UTC. I'm actually in Eastern time. What is that to me? Oh, that's going to give me, based on my time zone, it looks like it's still displaying here in UTC, what's currently open, what's currently closed. and then allows you a smaller list of groupings and filters. You can still take a look at what templates you want to display, and we'll see that this really gives you what's your opens and your closes. This allows you to kind of evaluate where are we at. Maybe this is helpful for an end of the day or end of the week type of a report to give you that feel across your different templates, how things are operating. So interval is more across time, where snapshot metrics are going to be more that point in time experience that you have there. The other thing that we have available to us inside of cases is this concept of an audit history. So this audit history, if we navigate to the Connect Case console, is going to allow you to see what's happened on a particular request. So if I open up this new laptop request and I take a look at the audit history, this will go ahead and give me all of the relevant information that happened, and then allows me to see what has changed. So if there's one field that's changed, in this case, changing from New York to Chicago, it will tell me that the city to ship field was changed. If there was a chat, it gives me that information that's associated with the contact as well. If there's multiple fields that were added, those can all be displayed. In this case, assigned queue, hardware type, assigned user, and city to ship are all blank or null, hence the dash. And then after, these were the fields that they were updated to. So audit history is really powerful to see who, what, and when something happened on a case. Who did the thing, what was the thing, and then when. You have the timestamps here that allows you to see exactly what's going on with the case. This is really helpful to see, history, and then also just provide general audit requests with the ability to, again, show more, maybe see when the case was created, see that this case was created with John Doe, case ID, and see some of those standard entry-level type things that were there. The last thing that I just want to touch on, and it's at the top of the using out-of-the-box case metrics. I understand, I think I went from the bottom up as far as how this is written out in the workshop here, is rules. And these rules are a pretty powerful way to automate things inside your contact center. Rules already have a lot of power to do things across evaluation forms. It allows you to react to your real-time metrics. Rules can allow you to assign activity or do things based on contact lens information. But rules can also be used for cases. So in the workshop, there's instructions on how to set up rules, how to integrate it with EventBridge, and really focus on the right fields and things that you may care about. And so an example of a rule here is in our IT help desk scenario, we may have a local office in Chicago that specifically is a depot for all of our laptops. Our employees that exist in Atlanta and New York and Miami, they all need shipped. But if the employee exists in Chicago, why would we ship it to Chicago? It's already there. So using that story and that scenario that we've set up here in this workshop today, we could set a rule where if the case is a hardware type of laptop, and if the city to ship is to Chicago, that's our condition. Our action for that can be to update this case field and actually say ORD local pickup. You could add other actions here too. You could create a task, maybe notify the procurement team. You could send an email notification letting the employee or the supervisor know that they will be receiving this laptop, but they need to come and pick it up. These are all available activities. And then once it's published, you can go ahead and actually see this in action. Now let's go back to this particular audit history. And we'll see that yesterday, this city was updated to Chicago and nothing happened. But once the rule criteria was matched and the both hardware type was laptop and the city to ship was Chicago, both of the things that need to happen in our conditions in the rule, we'll see that in the same minute, almost immediately, this rule updated the case and moved it from Chicago to local pickup. And it could have done other things as well. We could have had it update additional fields. We could have had it update the reason, or update the status, or update the comments, or any of those other types of things, the summary if we wanted to. We could have assigned a task. We could have generated an email. But in this case, we just updated the case to help automate and expedite some of the activities that need to happen without the employee, in this case, expecting that the case is going to be, or the laptop's going to be shipped to them, because they can just go into the office and pick it up. So those are the three things that we wanted to highlight from a supervisor or an analytics perspective. Talking about out-of-the-box case metrics, automation, and then the audit history that we have inside of Amazon Connect cases today. That does conclude the, I would say, structured portion of the presentation here today. We've gone through the process of setting up cases for the first time. We've gone through the process of evaluating custom fields, putting those fields into templates and testing what that case looks like from an agent perspective. We've then integrated cases and Amazon Connect guides to allow agents the ability to interact with these cases in a way that may be a part of additional workflows, where you're either bringing data in and enriching the agent experience, or you're taking the activities that the agent's typing and you're automating the input of that data into cases to streamline and save them time and not having to re-enter these types of information. We've also then gone through the process of seeing how we can empower customers to both view and update their cases via self-service channels. We showed you how to do this via Amazon Connect chat by exposing step-by-step guides on the chat channel. Those same guides that allow the agents to interact with cases can be used to allow customers to interact with cases based on the rules and conditions that you want. And then we talked about how you can use the same flow blocks to provide this experience on the voice channel by inputting their case ID, by using Poly or text-to-speech to provide back updates, and then capturing customer speech is how this could be extended to update information on the voice channel. And then we recapped a little bit on metrics, talked about audit history, and talked about rules as some of the ways that you can extend and expand case capabilities inside of Amazon Connect. Just past the quarter of the hour, going to open it up to any questions or anything that maybe we didn't get to in this particular session here. Fernando, anything that you want to bring up that we need to touch on or address, or if there isn't anything else, does anyone?
I will say that some of the questions that, that we received regarding how to use them on different environments. Let me rephrase that. For instance, how can we use step-by-step guides on a third-party software?
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. So step-by-step guides can be used in a variety of different kind of interfaces. We obviously showed you how it works inside the agent experience, that natively integrated flow there. But guides are also available via Amazon Connect Streams. And Streams is something that you should probably be familiar with if you're creating, say, a custom CCP or a custom desktop environment. That's also what our partners use if they're developing their partner desktop environments as well. So we do have partners out there that have already integrated with guides to provide those standardized workflows as well. If you have your own engineering teams, could utilize Streams and bring those guided experiences through. Cases, there's some support for cases inside Streams as well, being able to access cases, but it may be a better experience to abstract the cases interface out and then use guides like we talked about here today to really unify those experiences together and make it easier for agents in a customized environment to do these types of capabilities and workflows. Let's see. I see a question here about Cape Town. When will this be available for Cape Town? I don't have an update right now as far as when cases will be there. I don't know. Do we have? See anyone else on the call here? Something that we can probably go ahead and follow up with, and I would just recommend reach out to your account team and we can get that information funneled back over to them. The Amazon Connect, there's really kind of the two capabilities we talked about here. There is the step-by-step guides, which is part of the agent workspace. that is something that is available in Cape Town today. So the guided experience that we talked about, and then that piece of things that's available in the South Africa or the Cape Town region. Cases is not currently natively available there. So evaluation of what you're looking to accomplish and some of your timelines would be really helpful to prioritize that. I see another question here, not as related to the cases aspect, but probably came up because we were talking about chat. Is it possible to add Amazon Translate to have two-way translation? Absolutely. There's actually a blog post on that. I was chatting with someone earlier today about the same thing, so it's kind of funny that question came up here. Could probably Google it. Let me see if I can find it real quick. There is a link right here. Let me see if I can respond to this question. I think I just sent the response. So if you asked about Amazon Translate, I just put a blog post in there, and that blog shows a pattern. Oops, did I not? That link didn't work. Sorry, I gave the concatenated link. Let me try sending that again. All right, take two. Hopefully that link works. That link, it's a few years old. It's from 2021, so some things may have changed from a best practices perspective. But architecturally, it's still going to follow a lot of the same processes. It talks about how to do a very basic Amazon Connect chat implementation, and then how you can go ahead and take that information, translate it on one side of the screen into the dialect or language that you're looking for, allow the agent to respond back in their native tongue, and submit that, and then have that sent back to the customer in the source language. So not really a cases guides type thing, but passing that over just because I did have that link on hand. Anything else, Fernando, that you're seeing or that anyone else has to bring up?
I think that's there is a new question. Is there a way to use guides to help call center managers make changes to the system?
Yeah, actually. So these guides, again, what we showed here is how agents, so your frontline workers that are helping customers, and then how customers via the chat channel can access it. But you notice that all of the configuration that we did to build these guides is done inside of flows. So you can do things, you're probably familiar with IVR systems that you call in. Maybe you call into a special number or you put a special PIN code in, and that gets you into the TUI, the phone menu, the telephone UI. It allows you to open up queues or manipulate certain things. In that process, you can still do that in Amazon Connect if you want to. You can still go through that process. But sometimes configuration is just better or easier if you have a visual UI or UX process to go ahead and do that. And so you could use guides, whether it's on a chat. Again, we say customer-facing chat, but you could be the customer in this use case. You could be, the person subscribing to that chat. Maybe it's from a authenticated web portal that allows you and only your users access in via SSO. Could be an example of how to authenticate that. And that could allow you to programmatically maybe access or update certain things. Maybe you need to flip an emergency schedule. Maybe you need to post a quick prompt update. Because it's using flows, it allows you to update and push data back into Connect that you can then use in other areas. Because Connect, though, is also accessible via the web, a lot of times individuals may just log in and make those changes. But in a pinch or in a scenario where you don't think that's possible and you need a different level of access or a different path, you could certainly go ahead and use guides and then use the underlying flows automation engine to view maybe what your settings are. I see you're asking things like hours or callback settings. Maybe view those, edit those, and then push those through. And that might allow you to do it in one guide, for example, versus navigating to 5 different pages on the website. And that could be a time-saving aspect there, where you can go ahead and dial in the settings and configuration that you're looking for without having to hop around or do different things in different places. So certainly, I think that's a really creative but definitely inbounds use case for using guides here. I think we're once again caught up on questions, so if there's anything else, happy to address them. Otherwise, for anyone that's still on, please do take the survey that was with the session here. I don't know if, hey, look at that, Alex is reading my mind.
Boom, ready to go.
Please take a moment to provide feedback. I think that we had a link to that at the top of the session as well. So really do appreciate your feedback. The whole reason we do these sessions is based on the feedback and based on the thing that we're wanting to learn more about. I'm normally on every couple of months to talk about all the things that happen in agent experience world. And so it's always great to be here and share new things and have these types of conversations and walkthroughs. If there's other things that would be helpful to you to get more out of Connect and to further expand and understand how these things work or how these things work better together, kind of like we talked about today, definitely put that feedback in. I'll stick around for another couple of minutes just until we get to the top of the hour in case there's another question. But otherwise, I did want to thank everyone for hopping on today, spending some time with us in this technical walkthrough session, as well as anyone that attended the business session yesterday and got to learn about these capabilities as well. That's about all I got. Alex, anything else you got to say?
All good here.
Awesome. All right. I'm not seeing any other questions come through at this time. Thanks again, everyone, for hopping on, and hopefully you have a great rest of your week. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.